son's great-grandma physically assaulted me and she still feels entitled to see her great-grandchild. So this happened back in August. My son's great-grandma and her husband would pick up my son, who is 3 years old and autistic, from daycare every day and would keep him until I get off work. The day the assault occurred was on a Friday. I had Fridays off at the time, but I only dropped MS off at daycare that day to run errands, and plus I had an appointment. If I took MS to daycare on Fridays, e.g. entitled great-grandma would always ask me if I needed her or her husband to pick MS up. I went to daycare only to find out MS was already picked up. I text Egg to let her know I was on my way to pick him up. No one was home when I arrived at her house. Tried calling and texting her, but no answer. I drove to a nearby park instead of driving all the way home. She called back 20 minutes later and I politely let her know that I would like for her to let me know if she's going to pick up Miss. She replied, "Whatever." And I hung up. As soon as I arrived at her house, she said that I need to stop being ignorant in reference to what I told her earlier. I told her it was only common courtesy to let me know if she's going to pick up my child. Then Egg asked if I had received her text message earlier that day. I told her I hadn't noticed if I received a message. Sometimes I clear my notifications without looking at what they are. She told me his grandma's daughter wanted to see Ms. She didn't ask. She told me. I told her that grandma has a phone and she can call/text and ask me. I don't do the whole pass the message along bullcrap. Egg followed me outside as I'm taking MS to my car. She got in my face and pointed her finger in my face, telling me I needed to knock my speep off. I opened my mouth to respond to her and she grabbed me by my throat, leaving a bruise. She denied ever doing such a thing and claimed she only pushed me. Of course, MS was scared and screaming. Her husband got in between us and had to separate us. As I got in the car, she was laughing and playing with MS as if nothing happened. I told her to get away from him and she said, "Or what? What are you gonna do?" Police were called and I filed an emergency restraining order until there was a hearing to determine if there needed to be a permanent, as what the judge called it, restraining order. Fast forward to 2 days ago. There was the hearing. Judge listened to both sides and lied about 99% of her testimony. She claimed she was in fear for her own safety and all I did was yell and scream at her. In the police report, she went as far as to claim I drug MS out of her house by his arm. Her husband claimed he didn't see anything. Anyways, during the court hearing, the judge granted the restraining order for 3 years for me and Ms. Egg did not once take responsibility for her actions. Her response to the judgment was, "Well, I don't think it's right that she's taking away my great-grandson." The judge put her in her place by telling her that the mother have constitutional rights to her child, not her. And she also told Egg that I have every right to protect my child. Egg still responded, "Well, I don't think it's right. I've been in DV situations in the past, which is why this experience traumatized me. My ex stabbed me in the neck years ago, in which I almost died. So I've been through hell and back. I am glad you got a protection order against her. Make sure the daycare and everyone else knows she is not to be near your child. I wish you the best. Hugs." Kid doesn't need to be around someone who does that to his mom. Exactly. My 3 older kids witnessed so many domestic violence disputes with me and their father, so much so now I refuse to tolerate violence of any kind, no matter who it is. My son's one mentioned in my post has a different dad. She went for your throat knowing your ex stabbed you there. If she didn't have that intent, would she have grabbed you hard enough to leave a bruise? Or does she not know and got lucky? I'm so glad you got the restraining order. You are a great mom to keep that drama and danger out of his life. Is the stabbing ex her grandchild? If so, I would do everything in my power to move with no. How I got a store manager fired for selling my property to a Karen mom. I'm 26 meters and both autistic and have severe PTSD from some childhood trauma caused by both of my parents that I really don't want to get into. I'm on a few different medications for depression and migraines and have to live in Section 8 housing that I just moved into a few months ago after being on the waiting list for years. I don't like being touched or loud noises. And I certainly don't like seeing anyone take my stuff. When I moved to this city for the Section 8 housing, I'd been gifted a brand new Razor kick scooter by a friend to get around my new area with. And I love it. It's black and made a bit sturdier than typical ones for an adult to ride and has bigger wheels. It also isn't sold in the local stores, but they have similar looking ones in the bike department. And obviously I don't just leave it outside when I go into a store. I fold it up and put it in my cart while shopping. I look kinda twitchy, so most people leave me alone. And I'm just fine with that. But touch me without consent or take my stuff and be ready for a massive freakout. I went down the canned food aisle and started browsing the chunky soup. When I picked what I'd wanted and put the cans in the cart, I noticed my scooter was gone. And there was a woman with a kid fast walking away while carrying it. I shouted after them to return my scooter. But they ignored me, so I abandoned my cart to give chase. When I caught up to the lady and the kid, I tried to take my scooter back, and the kid screamed so loud my eardrums felt like they were gonna pop. And the Karen mom shoved down while yelling something I didn't hear because my ears were ringing and my brain just stopped working for a moment. A manager noticed the commotion and came to see what the trouble was. I didn't even get a chance to speak when the Karen mom started calling me a creep and was demanding I be thrown out. I kept trying to explain what really happened. But the Karen just kept yelling over me. We were separated and I was made to sit in an office. The manager approached me and I asked him where my scooter was, and he admonished me and said it was sold to the Karen. And I shouldn't have tried to take it from the kid when they were just trying to buy it from the store. Then he pointed out he had to give the Karen a discount just because of the situation. I understandably freaked out and told him that the Karen had taken my scooter that I came into the store with. And it wasn't sold there. The manager just looked confused and I nearly broke down. Then I pulled my phone out and showed him a picture a friend had taken of me with the scooter right after I'd gotten it. The next thing I knew, he was running out of the room. And when he finally came back, he said that the Karen was long gone. I pulled out my phone back out and started frantically calling the police. The manager actually tried to stop me by putting his hand over my phone, and I freaked out from him touching me. He backed off because I'd nearly kicked him and was panicking and saying he'd buy me another scooter from the store. I told him that my scooter was expensive and didn't come from their store. And I wanted mine back. Well, it turned out I had managed to dial 911 because the police were already listening in on the line and the operator was trying to get my attention. I just told them to send someone over because my property had been stolen. I had to wait for another hour at least while police showed up and then went through the CCTV footage. It clearly showed me entering the store with the scooter. And showed the Karen and her crotch Goblin taking it from my cart. And the mess that followed when I tried to get it back. I wanted my scooter back and police had to find the Karen from the camera footage of the parking lot. They found her address by running her plate number they got from the camera footage, and I got to ride in the back of a police car while we went to her apartment. The officer knocked on her door and I didn't hear the situation because I was still sitting in the back of the car with the windows closed. But the Karen mom looked really angry and eventually brought out the scooter after some back and forth. She practically had to wring it out of her kid's hands. I got let out of the car and they asked me if I wanted to press charges for assault because the mother had shoved me. She looked ghost white when I said I did want that. But the Karen started crying and begging me. She said that she honestly thought it was something the store was selling and it was her kid's birthday. I yelled that didn't excuse her stealing from someone else's cart, let alone from a legally disabled man. Her kid was also loudly crying and my ears were hurting again. So I said I wouldn't press charges on her if she didn't come near me or my stuff again. But I wanted something done about the manager at the store for letting this happen. And I was ready to ride my scooter all the way back there. But the police convinced me that it'd be better if I just went home and calmed down. I later learned on my next visit to the store a couple days later that manager was fired over what happened because he already had a few complaints against him and didn't bother to check that the scooter wasn't one of theirs. And the store gave the Karen and her kid a replacement Razor scooter that they had in stock because she'd already paid for one. But she was also banned for 6 months from the store for shoving me and stealing my property. I was also given a $50 gift card for some free groceries since I wasn't able to buy anything the day that mess happened. Now every time I go into that store, a few of the employees know me by name. And one actually told a random kid to leave me alone when he asked about my scooter. I certainly keep a better eye out now too. I've also since added a name tag on the underside of the scooter with my full name on it just in case this happens again. I'm really sorry that happened to you. I'm confused how the manager managed to sell something not in their stock inventory to someone though. I mean, maybe using a miscellaneous code, but how did they even come up with a price? Thinking maybe the manager sold it for cash and pocketed it, so maybe they were also let go for theft too. What a speep show. M thinks her daughter should receive tutoring for free. I'm a trainee teacher at a secondary school in Germany. We offer free tutoring for children with bad grades in the main subjects i.e. German, English, maths. But every grade only has 2 time slots and we'll tutor as many as we have to. If the parents decide they don't want this, they can always go to a private tutoring agency. But tutoring is mandatory when the grade is below average. I offer the English tutoring classes for grade 7 at the moment. Keep in mind, I'm doing this on top of my usual workload, which as a trainee teacher is higher than the average teachers with the same hours. Because I also have to go to seminars each week and have to prepare lesson visits. My seminar teachers come into my lesson and I have to write a 10-page report about the class, the topic, etc. each time they come. I get paid 80% of what a normal teacher with my amount of hours gets paid. I inform all the pupils with below average grades about the 2 time slots and ask that we try to keep both slots at an about even number of people, 14 pupils to tutor. So 6 to 8 per group would be optimal. I then ask them to decide on a time slot or hand me a note from their parents that they'll go to private tutoring. One pupil asked me to meet with her mother over this. I agree, thinking that she maybe wants to know what we're offering in tutoring or STH like that. Well, not exactly. You see, the pupil has so many hobbies that she doesn't have time during the 2 slots and the hobbies can't be moved to different times. But she also doesn't want to go to private tutoring. So could I maybe just tutor her in the evening? I was a bit taken aback and said that this wasn't going to work since I don't have the time and also it's not exactly legal to meet up with pupils for one-on-one tutoring. The mother wasn't happy. She pushed and told me that I clearly have much free time because I only work half day, yes. Because the other time is occupied by my seminars and preparations and it would be a great learning opportunity for me and so on. I told her I couldn't do it, but if she wanted I could ask other teachers. She asked if that was going to be free as well then. I didn't quite understand, so she elaborated. Since I was tutoring the other pupils for free, obviously her daughter had a right to be tutored for free as well, true. But only in the provided time slots. But she feared that any other teacher would not do it for free. Obviously, no one was willing to do this. So she hired a private tutor. But, now comes the best part. Send me the bill. She argued that my refusal was the reason she had to hire the private tutor, so I should pay for it. Obviously that didn't happen. Wow, for some reason I only pictured American Karens being this entitled. She obviously doesn't know how much work you've got, but still. Picking at a young teacher because she's overworking her child is ludicrous. P.S. PLS don't get the child expelled because of their mother's attitude. Brass Goblin shuts down public range. So the name Brass Goblin is reserved for those individuals that go to public shooting ranges and pick up all the brass and spent shells. This story revolves around Brass Goblin 3000. The super brass thief. This man was an older gentleman, retired and apparently with nothing to do. Every single day he goes to a local public range and sits in his minivan waiting for shooters. While you're shooting he will be standing to your right picking up your spent shells or straight up catching them mid-air. He's always there. Always waiting and digging in the dirt. One day myself and some friends show up and pretty much take over the short range lanes. As we are shooting he comes out of his minivan with that look in his eye as if brass was solid gold or the essence of life itself. Immediately he starts collecting our brass, but we try to shoo him off as we reload and don't want him to take our brass. He buggers off for a few minutes and heads to the other ranges. A while back between reloading we hear screaming coming from the other side of the dirt mound separating the ranges. Goblin had walked down range in an active range and started collecting lead from the mound itself. Of course this means that no one on that range can shoot anymore. We go back to our range because we figure someone else will get the ranger and all will be well. Nope, he's figured out if someone tells him no for the brass he can stop them from shooting at his range. He's arguing and digging and everyone is just overall confused. He fills his bucket and heads back to his van. The people on the other range go back to shooting. We are shooting, basically just emptying mag after mag for those that watch CNN. I'm talking about clips. Mid-valley poof, Goblin just jogs down range waving his arms. He was feet away from getting hit himself, but he didn't care. He turned to us with a grin and said, "Well, you're all done here now," and starts digging in the dirt. We realized that no one at the range called the ranger or the police. We call both and explain what was happening. The ranger shows up first and we explain. Goblin is still digging and claiming it's his right as it's a public park. The police show up and really don't know how to respond. Luckily Goblin started freaking out when we started picking up our own brass, claiming it was his, and started throwing handfuls of bullets and lead chunks at us. This was enough for the police to charge him with disorderly conduct and the ranger to ban him. Never had to see Goblin again. Is brass even worth all that much? Seems like he was making a big deal out of nothing. I'm pretty sure if he just asked, someone would let him collect their brass when they are done. I reload myself and have had some difficulties with brass goblins at both the range and in the woods. The scary thing about the woods is you're kind of on your own out there and they tend to roll up on you without any warning. tend to just pull up and stare at you in their car and eventually get out and kind of shuffle around till they ask if they can have our brass. Even had one guy one time try to walk up to our table with guns on it while he was talking to us, and we had to put ourselves between him and the table, and no one expected him to walk up like that. Had some situations that could have gone very wrong very quickly, but so far nothing too bad has happened. They're just more annoying than anything else.